On U.S. Highway 61, 125 miles north of St. Louis, the speed limit just outside tiny Palmyra drops from 65 to 55. During our visit, a police car sat in the median watching motorists pass by. In June, one of those officers pulled over Janine Hofer of St. Louis County.
Apparently there was a reduced speed zone.
No question Hofer was going too fast. She was clocked at 72 in the 55 zone and got this ticket. To avoid getting points on her license, she contacted a family member who's also an attorney.
So that's the ticket.
Scott Heitland asked the city prosecutor to amend the charge, a common practice in Missouri. But the response Heitland got back seemed rather uncommon.
I view this as a potential abuse of power.
The Palmyra prosecutor agreed to amend the charge from speeding to an equipment violation if Hofer paid a fine of $192.50 plus $27.50 in court costs for a grand total of $220. That is legal. But here's where things become a problem. The offer also asked Hofer to pay a voluntary donation of $100 to something called the Law Enforcement Fund, making her grand total $320. According to Missouri law, that is illegal.
Last year, some legislation went into effect to reduce the amount of the cap on fees from $300 to $225 for minor traffic offenses.
Because the law caps minor traffic violations at $225, Heitland advised Hofer to skip the so-called $100 voluntary donation. When Hofer sent the money, her payment was rejected.
In plain speak, what are they doing here?
I could make an argument that what they're doing is extorting money from people who are getting garden variety traffic tickets.
Is it extortion?
Absolutely not. I don't agree with that.
James Lemon is the city prosecutor.
This offer is illegal, right?
It's an offer in error. Yeah, I would agree that this offer should not have been made. You know, there's no question, and that's an offer that was made at my error.
Lemon claims he misread Hofer's ticket and recommended the higher fine, believing Hofer was going faster than 72 miles per hour. More than 20 over would put a driver outside the minor violation range, meaning the fines could be higher.
When I glanced at it, I thought it was 77.
But that's all of it confuses Heitland.
I have never seen anything like this.
The offer letter clearly stated Hofer was going 72 and asked for the additional voluntary donation that doesn't appear to be voluntary.
Is the word voluntary the wrong word to use on here? Is it really voluntary?
Well, and maybe the use of the word voluntary is an unfair suggestion, because quite frankly, the way the law enforcement fund is set up, it's just a part of the fine. All of the money goes into the general revenue fund.
Records show the Palmyra Law Enforcement Fund collected nearly 18 grand between January 2016 and July of this year. According to the city clerk, most contributions are from voluntary donations and court-ordered payments. Lemon says some of those come from traffic violations, others from organizations like the Kiwanis Club listed here. I asked if errors, like the one he claims with Hofer, have been made before.
I would like to tell you no, and I want to think that it's no. If you're asking me, have I ever made a mistake in looking at what the speed was on a particular ticket, I'm going to have to say it's possible. I don't think so.
They're circumventing the law in order to be able to keep charging the kind of fines that they want for just normal traffic tickets.
I feel that they're not following the law, and it's frustrating to be a citizen that you basically have to do what they say.
Will his complaint regarding this matter change the way you amend tickets in the future?
Well, I think one thing it brought to my attention is that we need to be very cautious regarding dollar amounts, and I've raised that with my staff and said, guys, if you see me make a mistake, you need to point that out to me.
After complaining, Hofer eventually got her voluntary donation back. We wanted to see if any other errors requiring drivers to pay more than required by law have been made, so today we filed a public information request to get those records. Chris Nagus, News 4.
I came over a hill, and there's a police officer sitting in the middle median.
Chris Nispel of St. Louis is just one of dozens of drivers nailed for speeding over the last year in tiny Palmyra, Missouri. 125 miles north of St. Louis on Highway 61, the speed limit drops from 65 to 55 as drivers approach the town.
It says I was going 70 and a 55.
Nispel hired an attorney to work a deal with Palmyra's prosecutor. He wanted to avoid points on his license to avoid higher insurance premiums.
What you've got in Palmyra is that
James Lemon agreed to amend Nispel's speeding violation to an equipment violation as long as Nispel paid $320, which included a so-called $100 voluntary donation, which wasn't voluntary, to the town's law enforcement fund.
Did you pay it?
Yes.
And that's a problem because it's against state law. In Missouri, minor traffic offenses are capped at $225. In a previous News 4 investigation, Janine Hofer of St. Louis County told me it also happened to her.
I feel that they're not following the law, and it's frustrating to be a citizen that, you basically have to do what they say.
In August, I visited Palmyra.
the city of Palmyra is just very, very concerned.
And asked the prosecutor why it was happening.
This offer is illegal, right?
It's an offer in error. Yeah, I would agree that this offer should not have been made. There's no question, and that's an offer that was made at my error.
Hofer got a refund, which made us wonder if others deserved refunds too. So I requested all amended speeding tickets beginning January 1st of this year. In every case, speeding charges were amended to equipment violations, even for drivers going as fast as 90. But I focused on minor offenses, drivers going less than 20 over the limit, and found more than a dozen cases where drivers were overcharged, including Chris Nispel.
I had no idea that anybody else had this problem until you reached out to me.
But the city knew it was a problem because after our original investigation aired, Nispel got a surprise in his mailbox.
All of a sudden, I get this letter in the mail saying that I have a refund, and there's a check in there for $95.
Were you surprised?
I was shocked. I had no idea. I've never heard anything about it.
Do you feel like the prosecutor should have known about that change in the law?
I feel like the prosecutor and the judge should have known. You would expect them to know the law better than anybody because they deal with the law every day. So I was really surprised.
What are you going to do the next time you drive through Palmyra?
I avoid Palmyra now.
I spoke with another St. Louis driver that also got a $95 refund. I also reached out to the prosecutor in Palmyra. He tells us 13 drivers received refunds, and from here on out, they will make sure nobody gets a fine for more than $225. Now, if you've received a fine of more than $225 for any minor traffic issue here in the state of Missouri, email us at investigates@kmov.com. Chris Negus, News 4.